But remember Jesus' criticism to the Pharisees. He called them whitewashed tombs. You look great on the outside. There's death on the inside. And so you have the passive approach, there's a willpower approach, and then third is what I would call the mind power approach. This is the view that if I can just know enough stuff, then I'll be spiritually mature. If I can understand the 5 points of Calvinism, if I can memorize the book of James in Greek, if I can write some nice theological essay talking about various Christological heresies and influence of Chalcedonian definition of 451, and use a bunch of Latin terms while I'm at it, get it published in an academic peer-reviewed journal, then I'll be spiritually mature. The mind power approach. And for people like me, this approach can be very tempting. Because, probably like several of you, many of you I would imagine, I have a seminary degree. I'm a Master of Divinity, for crying out loud. The mind power approach was also a big temptation for a lot of the spiritual leaders and Pharisees of the day of Christ. Remember what he said to them in John 5:39. You search the scriptures because you think that they give you eternal life, but the scriptures point to me. Consequently, many people who hold to the mind power approach tend to think that when a bunch of other people are up on stage and they sound really, really smart, wow, they must be spiritually mature. And when we do this with our heroes that we see on TV or whatever, and maybe, but then, we get shocked when some sort of scandal comes out or whatever. Guys, knowledge is a good thing, but knowledge is not the same as spiritual maturity. Knowledge is not the same as spiritual maturity. And as I'm going through this, by the way, I don't want us to become super suspicious of the spirituality of people, right? But Jesus says that we will know them by their fruit. The question is, what kind of fruit are we looking for? So you have the passive approach, the willpower approach, the mind power approach, and then fourth, the quid pro quo approach to God. See that? I just used a Latin term. Quid pro quo. It's a Latin term. If the ESV committee was to translate it, they'd probably say this for that. If Eugene Peterson with the Message Bible, it would probably say, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Right? So this is the idea. It's kind of a funny combination between the passive and the willpower. It starts with the willpower. I do my work to read the Bible, to pray, to do all these spiritual disciplines, and that gets me on God's good side, and then God will reward me with spiritual maturity. So under this view, God becomes kind of like Santa Claus. I've been a good kid, I've done my work, and so God will reward me. In fact, God owes me. Can any of you guys think of a parable of Jesus where you have a son holding a quid pro quo relationship with the Father? You must be a mind power approach guy, right? No, really, good. Yes, the parable of the 2 lost sons, right? You have the first son who takes his father's inheritance, runs away with it, squanders everything, comes back empty-handed. The father sees him at a distance, runs to him, embraces him, throws a party. My son has returned. But you have another son, another lost son, and he was with the father this entire time. But he's angry. He will not celebrate at his younger brother's return. And so the father comes out looking for him, finds him. What does the elder brother say? I labored for you. Where's my party? What does the father say? My son, I have always been with you, and everything I have is yours. This poor boy thought he had a quid pro quo relationship with the Father.